Okay, I'm going to use this video to go over the review and assessment at the end of Chapter 4, all right? So that you have this information and can be ready for the test on Thursday. So number 1 says, a human trait that is controlled by a single gene with multiple alleles. That is our blood type, right? Because we have alleles where we have A, an allele for B, an allele that's recessive, okay? Dimples, I think, are controlled by a single gene with 2 alleles. Height is controlled by many genes, all right? Number 2, a sex-linked disorder is hemophilia. Now, Down syndrome is an extra chromosome, right? An extra copy of the chromosome 21. Sickle cell is a codominant allele, set of alleles, and cystic fibrosis is a recessive allele that's not sex-linked. Number 3, which of the following would most likely be used to diagnose Down syndrome? We said Down syndrome is where they have an extra copy of chromosome 21. Well, the way you could diagnose that is a karyotype. A karyotype is a picture of all the chromosomes. All right? Number 4. Inserting a human gene into a bacterial plasmid is an example of genetic engineering. Okay? Number 5. An organism that has the same genes as the organism from which it is produced is called a clone. Right? That's just a vocab word. Right, let's look at these. Well, first we'll determine if it's true or false. If it's false, we'll fix the underlined word. A widow's peak is a human trait that is controlled by a single gene, and that is true. Number 7, a male inherits 2 chromosomes. That is false. It's the female that inherits 2 chromosomes. A male will have an X and a Y. Number 3, a karyotype tracks which members of a family have a trait. That is false. It is the pedigree. Right? The karyotype, we said, is the picture of all the chromosomes. A pedigree, on the other hand, is like a family tree that tracks traits. Number 8, hybridization is the crossing of 2 genetically similar organisms. That is false. That's inbreeding. All right, hybridization is crossing 2 different organisms that have different genetics. A genome is all of the DNA in one cell of an organism. That is true. And don't forget, we saw that video on the Human Genome Project where scientists were trying to map every single base in the DNA, that was 3 billion bases, wasn't it? Moving on. Explain why there are a wide variety of skin color, or phenotypes for skin color. Well, that is because skin color in humans is controlled by many genes. Okay? Many genes. Right, number 2, traits controlled by recessive alleles on the X chromosome are more common in male than in females. Explain why. If a male has an X with that recessive allele, let's say it's color blindness, he does not have another X that can mask it. So he ends up expressing that recessive trait. Whereas the woman, if she has an X with that recessive allele, her second X, if it didn't have that recessive allele, could mask the recessive one. So traits controlled by recessive alleles on the sex chromosomes are always more common in males than females. All right, what is sickle cell disease and how is it inherited? Well, we said sickle cell disease is a genetic disorder in which the red blood cells contain an abnormal form of the protein hemoglobin. People who have this disease inherit a copy of the recessive allele from each parent. Now, this is codominant, right? So, someone could have, let's say, let's call it, big S is the normal, and little s is the sickle cell, okay? If you have a big S, little s, you may still have some abnormal hemoglobin, but because you have normal hemoglobin, you do not show the symptoms. All right? But if you have two recessive alleles, one from each parent, you will have sickle cell disease. All right, what is a pedigree and how do geneticists use them? Well, a pedigree, we said, is the chart that tracks which member of a family have a particular trait. Geneticists use pedigrees to trace the inheritance of traits. They're trying to use it also to predict whether offspring in the future could have certain traits or the percent likelihood that they will have those. This type of thing is very important in genetic counseling when people are trying to decide the likelihood, if they are a carrier for something, the likelihood that their children would have that genetic disorder. Describes two ways in which people with genetic disorders can be helped. Well, one was, we said, let's say you have cystic fibrosis. Physical therapy can be very useful to try to help loosen up and remove mucus from the lungs of people with cystic fibrosis. They say people with sickle cell disease can take some vitamins or supplements to help their body manufacture more red blood cells. So there are ways that they can be helped. In addition, we said people even with Down syndrome, we said medical care, job training and education are very useful. So they can lead full productive lives, right? Number 16, explain how a horse breeder might use selective breeding to produce horses that have golden coats. Well, the horse breeder would mate only horses that have golden coats. And he would always select offspring with golden coats to be the parents of the next generation. He's trying to get horses that only have golden coats. Number 17, describe how gene therapy might be used in the future to treat a person with hemophilia. Well, possibly doctors could replace that defective allele on the X chromosome with a copy of the normal allele, right? It's a recessive allele. Maybe they could replace it with the dominant normal allele, right? And that's a bit in the future, but they are definitely starting to be able to do some of that. What is the Human Genome Project? Well, we said it's a research study with the goal of identifying the DNA sequence of every gene in the human genome. We said the human genome is all the DNA that we have. Moving on. A woman with normal color vision has a colorblind daughter. What are the genotypes and phenotypes of both parents? All right, so if there's a colorblind daughter, color blindness is a sex-linked disease, right? Sex-linked recessive. So that had to have an XCXC, right? If that were to happen, the mother would have been a carrier. The mother would have been a carrier. I'm going to write the XY backwards. And the father would have been colorblind. So the father's colorblind, and the mother is a carrier. A carrier is someone who has the recessive allele but does not have the disease. All right, if a mother is a carrier of hemophilia and the father does not have hemophilia, what is the probability that their son will have the trait? Well, let's take a Punnett square. All right, the mother is a carrier. So she's got X, and I'll call it XH, the recessive allele. The father does not have hemophilia, so he has an XY. What is the probability that the son will have the trait? All right, well, let's do XY, XXXY, X, XHY. Well, of the sons, 50% chance that the son will have it. And again, I'm looking only at the sons because that's what the question asked. All right, it says, the allele for cystic fibrosis is recessive. Identify which members of the family in the pedigree have cystic fibrosis and which are carriers. Well, the mom, the dad, and Sarah are carriers. They have one allele, but they don't have the disease. Emily has both alleles because it's colored in. She has cystic fibrosis. Okay? Let's see. Number 19, actually, there's a Punnett square on this, and it says, here's our Punnett square. It's got X, M. Big M's the normal allele. Big M. And X little m is the abnormal allele. We have Y. So the father's normal, the mother's a carrier. This is for muscular dystrophy. All right, what is the probability that a daughter of these parents will have muscular dystrophy? So we do the Punnett square. We got two big M's. X big M, Y, that's good. X big M, X little m, Y. All right, what is the probability that a daughter will have muscular dystrophy? Here are the daughters. 0%. One daughter will have normal alleles, and one daughter will be a carrier, but neither daughter will have cystic fibrosis. What is the probability that the son of these parents will have muscular dystrophy? Well, when you look at the sons, this one right here will have muscular dystrophy because he has the X little m. He's got the recessive allele, and he does not have another X to mask that. Is it possible for a woman to have muscular dystrophy? Well, yes, if she picked up X with a little allele and X with a little allele. There's definitely possible. It's less common, but it's definitely possible. All right, so take a look at these, study these, look at your different review and reinforces and guided readings that we've done for this chapter, and we will see you on Thursday for the test. Thanks.